Hi, and welcome back to Allergic to Yum. Today I'm going to discuss something that most college students interact with outside of class, but very rarely I would imagine do so inside of class, and that is beer. So I turned 21 in May of last year. For 8 months after, I got irrationally sick every time I would drink the drinks that I could finally and legally drink. Beer has always been my drink of choice, so when I found out that I had a gluten sensitivity that would eventually turn into a full-on allergy 8 months after I could finally buy myself a beer, it was a big letdown for me. So to help other beer lovers with allergies starting out like I am, I've made a list of helpful tips. So as you might know from a quick Google search about how beer works, the difference between tastes and types of beers is in the malt and fermentation process. This process is not dependent necessarily, though, on gluten. Generally, gluten-free beer is made from millet, rice, buckwheat, corn, and other ingredients that don't contain the proteins in the grains otherwise commonly used. But the gluten-free beer section in stores is always insanely expensive. Generally speaking, most gluten-free beers are considered craft beers by their distributors and thus are sold anywhere from $2 to $10 plus higher than the average beer, whether it's bottled or not. And in order for a company to be able to advertise that their product is gluten-free, the FDA says it must contain under 20 parts per million, or ppm, of gluten. But this can be tough for consumers to find out when most beers don't have to advertise what is inside of them on their packaging. Many of the popular cheap beers consumed by college students don't have all that much gluten in them to begin with. So if a gluten-sensitive person is on a tight budget, they can process a few Bud Lights without too many repercussions. Also, fun fact, Budweiser is brewed without any wheat, making it technically gluten-free after the company released the ingredients to the public in 2014, saying it contained water, barley malt, rice, yeast, and hops. So the reason why Budweiser is not known as being gluten-free is because barley and barley malt are often contaminated with gluten depending where it is grown. Barley can upset the ppm reading in a beer and lead to confusion and uproar from the gluten-free community. Therefore, the company leaves this alone. But if a gluten-sensitive person wants to drink responsibly a cheap beer or two, Budweiser may be a friend. That being said, if you are more sensitive than others to gluten, and there is a beer that you once loved, many breweries make a gluten-free option, but brand it differently to make it appeal more to craft beer lovers or to make it look like it should cost what it does in stores. If you ever are worried that a beer might be bordering the ppm that could make you sick, most ciders are gluten-free anyway and go down pretty easily. So after only about 3 months of looking into the gluten-free beer world, these are a few bits of info that I have found especially helpful. For more of my perspective as I walk through my food allergy journey, don't forget to check out my blog, Allergic to Yum, on Blogspot.